welcome back to the next episode in Road to 7,000 Gamer Score. This is the Oracle. This mission has probably one of the most incredibly frustrating fights in the entire game, so stay tuned for that later in the video. Not that any of this has been particularly easy on Legendary, but you know. The Oracle is the first mission that you'll encounter the Flood in Halo 2, which, compared to Halo 1, are a lot easier to deal with, I think. The main reason I say that is mainly due to the volume of enemies. Now, this mission aside, because it does actually have quite a lot of Flood in the mission, the rest of the game feels tame in comparison. That's not to say there aren't choke points and massive groups of Flood in later missions of the game. It just feels like, in comparison to Halo CE, it's much less of an issue in Halo 2. This mission is a bit of a strange one as far as what weapons you need to keep on you, because you're not only fighting the Flood, but you're also at certain points fighting the Heretics as well. The problem is, those two types of enemies don't get killed very easily by the same types of weapons. For example, your energy weapons like your plasma pistol and your plasma rifle are great for stripping the shields off of elites. Your precision weapons like your carbines and your battle rifles are great for headshotting grunts and then also headshotting the elites, which you've just stripped the shields off. However, they don't massively work very well against the Flood. This is for a number of reasons. One being the hitbox for the weak points of the Flood being unpredictable, I think. You can't really get a good shot on the ones that have been turned from elites. It's difficult to really get them to sit still as much in this game. I feel like they move a lot more in Halo 2 than they do in Halo CE or Halo 3. So you're much better off with high damage weapons like your shotgun, if you can get one, your rocket launchers, the energy sword, which I'm using here, which you find in the previous room. I was dreading this lift area because I remember it being so much harder on Heroic. However, it isn't actually that bad, providing you're using the cover on the lift, which is underneath the ramps and around that sort of central pole area, and you hit good shots with your energy sword and don't jump off the side of the platform like I did a few times, then you can get through it no problem. The next area you come to is much wider. You get a lot more freedom with your movement. You've got a lot more cover. You can actually stay up this top area for a lot of it if you're smart. You can get some of the sentinel beams which were on the lift and some that are lying around, and you can take out the majority of the Flood in this room from up here. I would only really jump down when you know there's a few stragglers left. You tend to know because, one, you can't see any. Two, if you peek over the edge, you might see the back of one of the heads because sometimes the AI doesn't allow them to jump up to you for whatever reason. They can, it's just not very common. Like for example here, I knew there was some left, so I was just trying to aggravate them to come out of their cover by shooting all the windows out, which as you can see worked a charm. Once you have cleared out the Flood from the bottom and you do jump down, there'll be more heretics that spawn and they come in from the top end, and then they'll pretty much jump straight down to try and get you, so you need to be prepared for another gunfight after this. Once you've managed to clear all of the Flood and heretics from the room, you can now look for one of the first collectibles, which is the skull. This is the famine skull that we're collecting, which is the one which affects how much ammo the weapons that you pick up off the floor have. Half, I believe. I was overcomplicating this initially. You don't have to do what I was doing in the video here, which is trying to align some of the overturned boxes. You just need to jump onto a little platform in the corner of the room, which you'll see in a second, and then crouch jump onto the level above. All you have to do to crouch jump is press the jump button and then press the crouch button immediately afterwards. All this does is pull the character's legs up, allowing you to reach ledges which you otherwise wouldn't be able to. There will be a group of Flood immediately when you get up there, so the best thing to do is basically what I've just done there and throw a grenade down. It's important to note that you do need to be on legendary difficulty for this skull to appear. If you try and do this on easy, normal or heroic, the skull will not be there. This is also the same room that the only terminal on the level is in. Now you'll see in a second that I did try and find it, but I'll explain why I wasn't able to. I wasn't aware of this myself until I looked it up, but you have to be in anniversary graphics in order to see the terminals. So I went through this entire room knowing it was here, looking around for it and not being able to find it because I was in Classic. Now why it should actually be, I've slowed this down so you can see, is opposite this doorway here, on the wall which is to my right there, that is where the terminal will be. If I was in Anniversary, I would have seen it. However, I wasn't, so I spent probably around about 20 minutes going through the entire room, going back on myself, going back through to the left because I thought I was looking in the wrong place. So don't make the same mistake I did. If you're looking for the terminals, make sure you're in anniversary graphics. The next part of the mission takes us outside, which is fairly easy to get through. There's plenty of cover, and you should have been able to pick up a carbine, an energy weapon to get through these heretics that you're about to face. You also get a little bit of help from Tartarus and the Phantom here, which at least clears some of the initial flood away. Once you've successfully made your way through outside into the next area, you'll come to what was, as I was younger, my favourite room. Why, I'm not sure. I just really enjoyed this part of the mission, and I still look forward to it every time I play through this game. While the game overall has a lot of replayability for me, and generally everybody who has played it has gone back to it at some point, I think what brings me back more and more now is the cutscene graphics from the Anniversary Edition. I've put a comparison with the same scene on the original graphics that were in the original game, and I remember thinking when I was younger that this was great. It was rare that you actually saw games with cutscenes of this sort of depth and the amount of things that they were describing, the conversations that the characters were having between themselves. And although the terminals weren't always in the game, where if you didn't know, they describe the overall lore of Halo, so they've been added in after the fact. Although they weren't always there, I think they managed to do a good job during normal cutscenes, normal Cortana speaking to the Master Chief, or the shipmaster there speaking to the Arbiter, of describing the actual world and giving you enough information to understand what's going on and be able to feel like you're part of the game. Which I think even to date, that has influenced a lot of modern games and shaped the way that we sort of look at the information that we get and what information we expect to get. There's a trick involved in this lift that basically makes you invincible, which I'm going to have to try on my lasso run, because apparently it makes the second half of the mission, which is normally an absolute pain, really, really easy. When the station's in free fall, you're basically now just chasing the heretic and then going to try and reason with him, which ends up turning into a final stand, which, if you hadn't already guessed, is going to be the part of the game which I really, really struggle with, and you'll see why immediately. I wonder whether having the pivotal change to playing as the Arbiter would have been received as well had it have been playing with the actual Covenant that you were currently at war against. So, say for example, first mission as the Arbiter was actually to retaliate against UNSC forces. You were fighting Marines, you were fighting ODST, or maybe it turned into like a cat and mouse sort of chase with the Master Chief, where one mission you would be the Arbiter and then you'd be trying to chase him down, or then the next mission you would be the Master Chief to be trying to chase the Arbiter down, and so on and so on. I think that could have still worked, and you could have genuinely still gotten to the same conclusion. You could have still gotten to the mission of Gravemind. You were trying to chase the Arbiter down, you ran into the flood. You were trying to chase Master Chief down, you ran into the flood. You're both then captured by the Gravemind and given the same lecture as you already are in Halo 2. I think with where Arbiter's mindset is before that mission and during the subsequent mission, that would have worked absolutely fine, and it would have woven into the story just as well as the actual story they did tell. I think I would probably recommend doing a non-chronological release playing order if somebody who was new to Halo was wanting to get into it for the first time. For example, I would probably recommend playing Reach first, as it's the prelude, then CE, then 2, then 3 ODST, 3, 4, 5, Infinite, and if we do get a new game, whatever comes next. You could make an argument to slot Halo Wars in there, so I'd put Halo Wars before Reach and I'd put Halo Wars 2 after Halo 5, I think, the timeline fits. I do love both of those games as well, and they will make a feature on the channel at some point. However, the main focus for now is going to be the Master Chief Collection. Though I'm sure if I need a break from first-person shooters, I will absolutely jump at the chance to do tabletop. Because I was still playing on my TV at this point, I was really struggling to see in classic graphics, so I did have to switch to Anniversary. This is mainly due to being an older man now. I cannot imagine my younger self would have struggled with this at all. The TVs are about 4 times as big, way more resolution, way more FPS than we ever got. However, I'm now very much struggling to see the classic graphics. However, I absolutely am going to blame the distance between me sitting on the sofa and the TV instead. We're now coming to the final part of the mission, which is this mission's boss fight, where you fight the heretic leader. The boss fights being introduced into Halo 2 were, yes, refreshing. However, I feel looking back now were slightly unnecessary. Would the game have been marginally less fun without them? Sure. Are they incredibly tedious at harder difficulties? Absolutely yes. I think Halo 2 overall scaled very poorly as far as the difficulty is concerned. I remember playing through on Heroic, I think it was around 2 years ago, and I remember thinking then, God, this is hard. And I wouldn't say the jump in any of the other Halo games between Heroic and Legendary is mild, but they're certainly milder than Halo 2 is. The AI is absolutely relentless. Your health is non existent for the most part. Instead of me showing you me getting immediately clapped about 100 times before I figured out the strategy here, I thought I'd show you a few times just to give you an idea of what the opening of this part of the mission is really like, and then moved on to how I actually solved the problem. In order to survive the initial onslaught of 6 plasma rifles shooting at you at the same time, you need to make use of the cover that's immediately in front of you when this part of the mission starts. It's sort of like a little column that you can see me standing behind here. And then as I was just looking over to the left there, generally the safest thing that you can do is run underneath that cover. Don't go into the tunnel. That's what I thought was going to be the move, as you'll be able to see here. And they can just fly straight in front of it and just beam you through there anyway. So the best thing you can actually do is just hug around the pillars which are underneath this platform bit. That will allow you to, one, remain in cover, and two, they tend not to all fly at you at the same time. So there's 3 of them in total, 2 of which are decoys and one of them is the actual heretic. If you remain hiding behind the cover underneath these platforms, only one at a time will tend to try and come around the corner, as in immediately around the corner and try and shoot you, just like you've just seen on the screen there. If you do wait around and wait for one to come around, that is the best opportunity you're going to get your shots off or to get your melees in. It obviously helps to have the energy sword, but it's not the end of the world that you don't have one. But if you can keep it until this part of the mission, I would highly recommend you do so. I got very lucky here, and the actual heretic just basically flew straight into me, so I was able to kill him. You do have to hit him or get him down, in essence, a few times. You get a checkpoint after every time you do it, but I think in Legendary it's 4, and the 4th being the final one. But that is the Oracle completed, along with the location of the skull and the terminal, which I will do separate videos for down the line. However, for now, you should be able to find them using the guide that I've provided earlier. As always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one where I tackle Delta Halo. And please don't give me too much stick for my very embarrassing score again at the end here.